So we got our little mermaid in hand. You ever really looked at the symbols? Really looked at the symbols. So I don't know if you are annoyed with society. Ah, that's a cold quad shot. It's nothing like paying $4.25, for 4 shots of espresso and having it come out. You have to look at the bylines. You have to order things specific to the way you want them. But then lo and behold, somebody just does it the right way, right? And they understand the protocol. Have you been getting stared at by people just blankly staring at you? They don't really have judgmental faces, but then what else would they be doing existentially looking around at someone else? The answer is they're trying to figure you out so they have someone to follow. And on YouTube, you have followers. On Facebook, you have friends, friending. Bear with me here. And if you think that this isn't taking a sociological approach and putting a social system, like even social networking, we think of that as a branding mechanism, but really delve into this and really let it sink in. Most people that I know are trying to get away from other people, and they're far more gregarious, loquacious, and lascivious than I am. In fact, I've never been a competitive person, and even when I've won awards and stood up, I never knew what to do. Why would I be talking to you? I went within myself, right? But then there are these different aspects of the self, and you can get into. I have some really good conversations with people. I was talking to somebody who studied psychology. I'm not going to say she was a psychologist, but she studied psychology. And it's just really interesting, the Freudian triage, the id, ego, superego, right? You have that. And then you can get more Jungian. And then you can get like Sam Vivek, where you are a narcissist. You think that you are, that the louder you speak and the more followers you have, the more relevant you are. But the truth is that a narcissist is a conformist. Why else would the personality, the persona, alter and change itself for a society? So you have people who are conforming in their way and reacting through the conforming mechanism. And you're looking at MK Ultra in real life. You're looking at the fourth tier of the personality. And yeah, if you name it, you've got unlimited capitalistic means. You've got books that you can write. You have a whole universe that you can create, especially if you know the playbook. And the playbook is that sitting antithetical to the kingdom within, you have the conformist. And once people stop conforming, once you stop voting altogether, the real vote is to not vote at all. The real life is a life of deep contemplation, sorrow and regret for things that we consider extremely minimal, that would have been done in our childhoods. And a complete and total apprehension to take another step. And then you get into these areas of extrovert and introvert. There's no such thing as an extrovert or an introvert. You're going to watch throughout a lifetime the most extroverted person that you know. If they make it far enough, they will take on all behaviors of the introvert by the time, unless they are 100% clueless. And then you have to get into the area of fabrication. Fundamental belief systems. You don't have to be atheist. You don't have to be agnostic. You don't even have to be Gnostic. But the traditions of esoteric Buddhism and Gnosticism really point back at you yourself. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I'm like, he's saying, I'm going to turn my life around, and every time I, get a little something, it goes right to my head, and I get so cocky, and then I lose it all. And I'm going to get a relationship with God, and my mom just passed away. I'm going to start, getting into that Bible, and it's like, well, the Bible's full of crap. It is a manipulative tool, a control mechanism, and it doesn't work on people anymore because they know too much. And if you want to walk away with principal tenets from something, there are far better books, but it's a worthy pursuit. You have to look for the principles, right? And why would you read a bunch of drivel and witchcraft on the way to do that? And if you're having a relationship with God, you're having a relationship with yourself. And that's the amazing part of it, is you are now having a relationship with your higher self, your higher mind. And that's what they don't want you to do. They don't want you to realize that whatever you can conceptualize as far as God goes, and then you start looking around at the tools and how this could be done, right? How this could be done. Of course, they're going to try and brainwash you into thinking that God, is an existential and outward, a surface type of thing, a superficial persona or personality. And that leads into the narcissist, right? This grandiose conceptual behavior about the self that's completely fabricated. And the understanding how to play victim just at the right time, how to play possum. And I watched this video of these birds that 100% knew. It's funny. You have those really cute birds that have those nice little, black eyes, and then you have the blackbirds that fly up that have those almost like reptilian eyes. Well, this type of bird, and I don't know what it was, had those reptilian type of eyes. And you almost see it in nature, right? You see the struggle, you identify with the struggle, you feel a certain, humanity is the word to use for us to understand, but it really reaches obviously into Neoplatonism and animism and everything else, because there is a consciousness in just about everything. To say that doesn't exist, why does geometry exist, and why does assigning a geometrical constant invigorate and give a certain energy or pull energy away? In that essence, that is what consciousness is. It is the interplay, the interlude of consciousness is geometry, right? Held in a sort of stasis as everything sort of spins around it, right? And it is spin. But you do have those who are the mimics. They have to follow behind you on the highways. I've even had people say this about themselves. They're like, I'm totally competitive. And it's like, no, what you are is you are a thief. And I guarantee you use lies, and you are a whore. You will whore yourself, and you don't want to call it that. So society gives you something where it's like, I'm an aristocrat, and this is the way the Tudors do this, and you're going to find a suitor in this. And it's like, no, you're being amorous. No, you're reaching outside of yourself to try and gain in your own personal scope, and you're imprisoning yourself because there is no self actually there. No, you're a thief. You're stealing other people's ideas through ideation. You're picking a god and then you're destroying your god over and over again. You're copying somebody. You're copying your older sibling, and then you don't even shed a real tear when they pass away later. You think that you've completely stole their identity, but you've actually taken away all their resources, and they gave their resources to you gladly because they wanted to see you succeed. What did they want to see you succeed in? Yourself. They wanted you to go through self-discovery so that you could become a self, but all you saw it as is brandishing a self. It was just another existential tool. So this leads into the populist movement, and what that is, the trickle-down effect of copying other people, living in this hell world of sin. And I'm going to tell you that it happens. You could say these people are engineered. I do believe that there are engineered, very synthetic, but I think that the engineering is done through geometrical means, constants, to change the geometry of not even just star position, but to be able to slow the roll down of the 950 mile per hour spin of the earth. So-called. To change the temperature, to change the gas solution around you, to get you acclimated to thinking that those are clouds in the sky when you know there's something very different about it, right? You know it. And you're not going to get out your test kit, and you're not going to test everything, but they'll gladly come up with a government program, a fringe government program that will do that for you. Only it'll never be done in the way that you wanted it to, and there's so much lobbying and legislation and excuses that there goes another 10, 20, 30 billion dollars out the door. So society is not the answer. Socialization isn't the answer. Small communities like they do in the Philippines of 13 to 21 people, let's pick out a good phi number, a small number, that isn't the answer. The answer is that intrinsically within what it is, who you are, the principles that you follow, and you can learn nothing by the existential refracting back to see if those principles can be in play outside yourself. They can't be. Everyone sits solemn and alone. This is not what you want to hear. This does not seem like an answer. However, it is. Because always you only have to deal with the self, yourself. And it becomes an extremely selfish pursuit. And the people who are more evolved are going to give themselves up. They are going to appear like failures. They are going to have a story and a byline behind them. Everybody is going to be able to rally behind them. Oh, such and such died of cancer. Well, they died of cancer because they had to live a life that was subpar to the things that they would have done if they had not made all the mistakes. Now, why did they make those mistakes? I'm going to tell you 100%. If you're being watched and you're being monitored always, and even more so if you're being watched and monitored from within, and it understands every little hairpin trigger, that you go through cathartically in a day, it's a master control system. And the only type of person that would do that is a highly sophisticated narcissist, somebody who's used these levels of conformism, and like Houdini that lives in a technocratic society millions of years advanced to what we're used to. And why do we use that? Why do we use the term millions of years? That we're rotating around a little sun that was created. When we have the moon up there that is a sun core that's been sitting up there until the time that we can figure out, oh shit, this is what narcissists do. When they steal all the intrinsic, let's say gnosis, wisdom, knowledge from those who are the benefactors of such information within a family unit, within a work unit, the people that you work with within a societal unit, your smaller community. And we do that. What do you think a neighborhood is? You do live in a community. Nobody talks to each other. Everybody hates each other. Some people bullshit each other. If you let anybody get too close, there's always an agenda with wife swapping or some capitalist trying to sell you, some products from Herbalife. And they are self-sufficient. They are thinking about themselves. They are always aware of the self, but they don't even understand what the self is, because they're going through the actions of there is a master level of conformism, and that is what the forefathers of this country were. That is what the Masonic order is. They weigh in and they assert, and then ultimately all they can do is come to a fundamental realization that all that is against them is a threat, an existential threat to their survival and their existence. And so if they can't keep you in a cage, they will have to kill you off. And once the beasts, the monsters, the villains will no longer stay in the cage, and they have such heavy influence over the generations, their offspring, that will be told in parable. It goes back to things that are done through oral traditions. Like when you take the phone away, when you take the technology away, we are complete and total idiots who don't know how to build anything. We don't know how to prepare anything. We don't know how to cook anything. And the people that are like, oh no, I'm not listening to this, that's ridiculous. Try doing it. Try doing it without going to the supermarket. Try bleeding out an animal, and then it's like, oh, I know how to do that. And it's like, do you know how to do it when the arrow supplier to your bow no longer exists? Would you know how to prep up and create an arrow? Would you know how to, if you had the gunpowder, would you know how to refill and press your own ammunition? Or would you know how to tool and manufacture, machine some pellets just for an air gun when you need, So it's like all the things that we think are these modern utilities are actually keeping us back because we don't know how to survive. The Valcombe bars, those little bits and pieces will run out, right? And then what? So what we do is we try to gain up a stockpile so that we can have dominance over our fellow. We want to gain as much of a spread to where we're running that much further ahead of them, and then we want to convince them that they are beneath us. They must become our employees and must conform. As much as I like listening to Dabu 7, I gotta say that he's one of the only ones out there that's actually taking the time to do this. And he started early on enough to where he gained an audience, and then he got a comfort, and it's a nice role. Do I like his music? Absolutely not. Do I think he's 10 years younger than me and he's got more gray on his chin than I do? Is that an attack on somebody who's going the right way, who's going the godly way? Absolutely. That's when I started to see the sort of bolstering and fruitage of earthly beauty pull away, is when I no longer would interplay with that. Is that something that's being done consciously, or was it just manufactured into the geometry of the thing? And I believe that it was. There's no like, when you behave a certain way, bear with me, the whole Emoto thing, with the water molecules, you're going to see the geometrical structure down to the molecular units change in shape based on your behaviorism and harmonics, right? So you could get into calling this cymatics. So once you're behaving a certain way throughout your circadian rhythm, throughout it, like a 24-hour cycle, not exactly 24 hours, but I digress. You've got this flux occurring. You could call it, polarization, depolarization, repolarization, the thing that's happening electromagnetically through your spinous system, through the plexus of your nervous system, from the CNS to the PNS, efferent, afferent signal responses. But your energy travels on beyond that and sends out, just like Metatron's cube, sends out a reverberation. And when we're not vibrating the same, right? Well, it doesn't matter if there's a correct way. The norm, the normalization of the majority is assumed as the correct sort of way. So, as much respect and admiration as I have for somebody like Dabu 7, when you get down to the premise of what are you going to do when the shit hits the fan, because it's about to happen. And his answer is, I'm going to prep, I'm going to trade, you're welcome to come out here and, join up, but you're going to have to work. And it's like, ultimately, you have somebody who is a narcissist. They can't provide proof that this postulation of a Christian God exists. They're living on the fringe, where they're taking on certain technocratic ideologies, or ideologies. They have their foot partially in one world and partially in another world, and but here they are proclaiming Jesus, and there 300 years ago there was no J, and we've had that conversation for many years, right? And it's like, okay, well, let's call it, it's Yeshua, it's Joshua, and it's like, no, it's about when you experience light, the light bringer, and how the light affects you, and whether or not you're a conformist and you become a complete and total narcissist as you refract back into yourself, or if you become selfless and knowing that there's no way that this is necessary for your soul development and your soul growth. And then we have to get into the most fundamental thing, is what the hell is a soul? Is there a soul? Well, soul meaning sun, right? SOL, SOLE, SOUL, same thing. So you're culminating energy from the sun. Now, how can you culminate energy from the sun? Would you say you eat? Actually, that dulls you down. What we've found is that when you're fasting, you're clear, right? When you're fasting, you invariably and inevitably lose some weight, right? But you start to lose muscle. This gets into Jack Kruse a little bit, and the whole light production from within your cellular units as a measurable, scientifically empirical process that we do produce light. So you build up that solar or that sun energy through, you could say, meditation, but what is meditation? Meditation is being in a certain state of mind, a certain status of being and becoming. When I say status, I'm not talking about, I'm saying steady state, a held state of mind. So everything in society creates a self-sacrifice to your building soul, because we're talking about something that is very scientific and ends up becoming who you are. You are replacing an arm in place of an arm, a leg in place of a leg, a body in place of a body. I've been talking about this for well over 10, 11 years. And as much as you want to help other people, you are being given a dog, a cat, a mother, a sister, a brother, a cousin, a best friend, somebody that you call family to make you feel like you fit in, that you conform. And the last thing that you should want to do is conform to anything, conform to any mechanism out here. Everything that you see, from every brick that's placed to the 90 degrees of sorrow that Crow 77 before he made a terrible mistake, and he's a very intelligent person, but to turn about 5 to 7 years ago, he pulled everything off YouTube. And he ended his real true matriculation with like-minded people right there. And that's just part and parcel. That's what happens. Nothing is allowed to advance out. Don't you see that? It's why the religions cannot be full of truth, because the Bible would light, if it was full of purity and truth, the Bible would light on fire, whether somebody lit it on fire from the get-go, or it just became this incendiary tool that was juxtaposed to the existential world because of the pentagram, because of the 5 points. And again, I talked about this earlier. What was it? Cool Sunday Teas and some other channels have really nice shorts and blurbs, but it's really hard to, and I love the way that they think, but they're just coming into this information. They're just getting privy to the information that's so important, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but they need to take much deeper dives. Almost everything that they're talking about is, again, antithetical to any base Christianity or Christian religion. Ultimately, you have to look at and turn every stone. And once you do that, every thought of practicum, and you will find that from a neurolinguistic programming sense, the Messiah, Jesus, God, Satan, the disciples, every aspect that exists intrinsically within you has been brought out so that it can be manipulated. So now, without even thinking about it, you're going to be watching these actionable deeds. Oh, I can't act like that, or I'm going to be hung on a cross. I can't act like that, or I'm going to be put in prison. I can't act like that. I can't act like that. I can't act like that. So as long as you bite your lip and try to conform, you are a sellout. And congratulations, we're all sellouts. We're all sellouts. We're sellouts when we sip this stuff. We're sellouts when we think we made our own coffee brand. We're sellouts when we think we made our own cologne. We're sellouts when we think we've done anything that reaches out into the existential. And so what is the answer? It's like to be a monk, to be a Buddhist monk, to go through self-immolation, right? And it's like, I don't even believe that that is really a thing. I think that that is just another misnomer. That is just another dead end that people, but I think it's as close as you can possibly get. You know, Mr. Ballin had an episode from a couple years ago where he's talking about this, where there's a certain sect of monks that will actually bury themselves through the final process, you know, and in reaching the understanding of this samsara, right? It's not identifiably the right word, but it's just the truth. And understanding this, they will bury themselves and they will breathe through this tube, and they will go into total isolation underground, and they'll let the body basically return back into where it came from, giving it back so that the soul itself can be released. So again, this deep contemplation, this deep mental mind meditation, this spin cycle, the Book of the Dead, you know, your soul shouldn't be more weighty than a feather, right? So you take on these things, you take on these attributes, but your base self should be quantized into the base principle unit and one lightweight molecular light unit that is that is an identity, but is the identity of the origin that it comes from. Man goes back into his own roots, so to speak. So any additions to this, such as the tree of life, where you see Metatron's cube and then you see this little addition down on the bottom, right? And there's the statement, as long as I'm going to be alive, I'm going to live the best life. I'm going to have the most opulence. I'm going to have the most lavish life. And it's like, you just sold out. Leave no footprint in the sand. You just left footprints all over the place, you know? So how to end this while I got up late and I'm sort of, it's already rolling on 7:30, but I was really tired today. Had to sip on an extra espresso shot. I don't know how many of these videos I'm going to be able to do, but so do you think animals follow you in a lifetime? You know? And do you think there's a treatise where if you go through certain ethos, if you go through certain moral, ethical actions and deeds, and you don't venture too far outside of yourself, and you are happy with a base minimum, a house, a good job, you work your ass off, you know, a meager car. And it's like, when you look at the mechanism of how this manifests, you have to have repression and suppression as a government tool or a government system outside of yourself. And in this, the elites, the people who are living in the most diabolical ways, become your release. They become the instrument that frees you, right? And it is a very wicked and savage and vicious dance. And I saw this many years ago, and I'm not playing that game. So there is a breakaway, and there always has been a breakaway. And they call these cults, right? And Christianity is a cult. There are subfractions of Christianity. There are Christians that follow John the Baptist. You might think that's, you know, a misnomer in itself, but in that essence, that proves right there that this Messiah or Christ type figure doesn't have to be Jesus Christ. It doesn't have to be Yeshua, which is a different entity than Jesus. Isis is a different entity. Don't you see that? Once you change the structuralization of a name, you're changing the symbol, you're changing the codified numeric system. It is a different, it's a different duck. It's not just a simple name change. You're calling on an energy. You're calling on a geometrical constant or a geometrical structure when calling on that energy. So I'm gonna end this, but I'm telling you that there is no such thing as narcissist. That's an outcome. At the base, it is a conformist, and it is how we conform to society, how we conform to norms and certain behaviorisms, how we conform and change our standards. And once you go back to the base of where you left off, could have been many lifetimes ago, because they are going to bring back certain codified systems of persona or personality. It's that simple. You vibrate a number that number through mimetic sequencing is going to complete itself and draw on through naturalization, right? And so what they want to do is they want to create more error codes. They want to create more people who have to go through time cycles in order to fix who they are. And then you have replicants, you have replications of the same persona, the same personality over and over again in society. And then the reduction is a natural cause, it's a natural source. Everything goes back into its roots, it goes back into its source. And so what's occurring is, on this capitalistic production line, this constitutional republic that doesn't know if it's a democracy or a republic, but it's both, because it has to create that vibration, that right to left pointing hypotenuse, that vibration, that undulation, that flux. It has to try and triangulate and figure out which side it's going to be on, but it's not allowed to go on either side, and that's where we're stuck. And that's it's very simple. You have a choice to make every moment of every day. I was going to say every time you wake up in the morning, but a lot of people don't even sleep anymore, and their slow wave sleep is disturbed, and they're not getting the growth hormone they need. Stop thinking about the longevity of this world and this life, and start really thinking in terms of the intrinsic aspect of how you're going to build a soul, how you are going to stick to these principles, but more so how you're going to stay pure when you do this. And it doesn't matter if you've been in prison for 15 years and you did heinous things. It doesn't matter if you're one of the most vicious personalities that ever walked the face of the earth. If you started out, if you understand what purity is and you started out pure, then you go back to that origin and you stop adding on this application of falsity and building up this lofty weight that you're carrying around. And I guarantee you'll feel better. Does that equal life here? This is not life. Okay? This is not life. This is a place that we got stuck through our own evolutionary process, against our means, our golden mean, against our best notion, our best effort. You were trapped here, just as I am and I was. And